Just
Okay,
stop.
so let me ask you a question, Mr. Joe Rogan, Mr. Scientist. Are you saying that we shouldn't
Don't
have...
do that. Don't call me Mr. Scientist. I'll start mocking you, and it's so much easier to mock you.
So are we...
Let's just
But you're not a scientist.
I don't have to be a scientist
do.
to know that...
Yes, you do.
No, Brian, shut the f*** up. I don't have to be a scientist to read research.
When it comes to science, Joe Rogan has never exactly come across as the most reliable voice in the room. He tends to lean toward alternative ideas and fringe theories instead of sticking with solid, peer-reviewed research. And that pattern has followed him for years now. Lately, though, as he's getting closer to his 60s, he's been going all in on trying to optimize his health in every possible way. It's gotten to the point where he's basically turning himself into a full-on experiment, testing out different treatments like a human lab subject. And recently, he caught heat again after talking about another wild procedure he tried, plasmapheresis, which he described as being like giving your body an oil change. That comparison raised a lot of eyebrows, and people online wasted no time calling it out.
Right. I recently underwent this plasmapheresis thing. Yeah. And that's supposed to remove a lot of that stuff from your blood, correct? So I'll tell you what, the next day... I was very tired that day, like exhausted that day. But the next day afterwards, I felt like lighter. I felt like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, I felt like I had more energy. Like it was like kind of late at night. I was like, I'm not tired at all. This is weird. Like I felt different, you know. And,
so that would be great. Are you going to do it again?
No, I just did it. I mean, I would do it again.
Many pointed out that the body already has organs that naturally clean and filter everything, so for someone like Joe, this procedure doesn't really make sense. Sure, there are legitimate medical cases where people actually need this treatment, but Joe clearly doesn't fall into that category. Instead, it comes off like he's just got endless money and curiosity, and this is what happens when those two things mix. In fact, during his own podcast, it became pretty obvious he couldn't clearly explain why he even did it or what real benefit it gave him, which made the whole situation even more confusing. And then there's the price tag. This procedure can cost over $10,000, which is wild considering it might not have done anything meaningful for him at all. Meanwhile, there are people out there donating plasma just to make some extra cash, which makes the contrast even more intense. To top it off, he even admitted he doesn't really know how much he paid or whether he actually felt any different afterward, which just makes the whole thing sound even more questionable.
So I'd be interested to see if maybe I have low levels, because I certainly feel like my body, it felt refreshed, like I had less inflammation, you know, but that's like a 2-hour procedure. It's a pain in the butt. You know, you got to sit there for 2 hours. You look like a psycho. You know, like I should have taken a photo of what I looked like while I was doing it, because I was laying there and I had like cords in this arm and cords in that arm. So I had blood coming out of that arm and going back into that arm. It's really kind of nutty.
How expensive?
I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm sure it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Feel pretty good.
At this point, Joe can't even tell if he's feeling anything from the plasmapheresis or from the long list of other substances he's constantly putting into his system. It's all blending together, and that's what makes this whole situation so wild. He's stacking so many different treatments, hormones, and supplements at once that there's no clear way to know what's actually doing anything. So when he talks about this procedure, he can't even say if it helped, hurt, or did absolutely nothing at all, which makes the whole thing feel even more questionable. And then there's the part where he casually admits he has no clue how much it even cost him. That alone says a lot. It almost sounds like he's just got a card saved at that Austin wellness spot, Ways to Well. And every time he walks in, they just charge whatever they want without him even thinking twice. At this rate, it wouldn't be shocking if he's dropped an insane amount of money there over time. That clinic has become a hot spot for a certain circle, too. You've got names like Rogan, Brendan Schaub, Brian Callen, and others all going there to try the latest peptides, hormone treatments, and experimental-style wellness trends. It's like a revolving door of comedians chasing the next big upgrade for their bodies. And honestly, it's starting to look like that place is thriving off this exact crowd. With so many of them buying into the same routines and products, the business just keeps booming. At this point, it almost feels like they could package up something basic, slap a bold claim on it, and Joe would still give it a shot without hesitation, just hoping it might give him some kind of edge. He's gotten so disconnected from regular everyday life that he honestly thinks he needs to do every single thing that Ways to Well throws at him just to stay optimized. It's like anything labeled health, longevity, or recovery instantly gets a green light from him without much second thought. Take those ice baths he's always hyping up, for example. That's another one of those treatments tied to that same wellness scene, and he pushes it hard on his podcast like it's some must-do routine. But in reality, if you're not a high-level athlete getting beat up in a contact sport, it's just not that necessary. If your daily workout is mostly kettlebells and basic training like his, there's really no logical reason to be dunking yourself into freezing cold water every single day. It starts to feel less like recovery and more like he's chasing some kind of extreme experience just to feel something intense. And that's where it gets kind of strange. His lifestyle is already so comfortable that it almost seems like he's creating these artificial challenges.
I want to see if I can get you into Ways to Well. There's a stem cell clinic in Austin, and they'll take care of you. They'll shoot you up with stem cells in your neck.
Hell
if you
yeah.
got neck problems, enough people get them to that. It's something you have to consider.
I called you about the peptide, and then you turned me on. Thank you again for the stem cells today. The nurses were great.
They're great. Ways to Well's awesome.
Listen, bro,
I love that place.
I could tell you, and I even told her to her face, I go, I'd love to tell you I felt the needle.
Wow.
Just to simulate struggle, which flips the whole idea of wellness on its head. Even people close to him have called that out directly. You can even point to moments like when Louis C.K. told him straight up that all the cold plunges and sauna routines were over the top and unnecessary. That came right after Joe joked about people not being able to afford expensive setups like a $5,000 ice bath, which didn't sit right with a lot of folks. It really makes you wonder how often people challenge him on this stuff, because he seems fully convinced that his routine is essential.
Lex Friedman and Andrew Huberman were talking about saunas and cold plunges and stuff like that, and like the benefits of it. They're two scientists.
Yeah.
They're talking about the provable benefits, heat shock proteins, cold shock proteins. And then I'm reading the comments where some guy was like, yeah, well, you guys aren't talking about is how much it costs to buy a sauna. You're making it seem like it's all free. And like what are you supposed to do? Like, every fucking thing? Like, I'm sorry if you're broke.
Oh, no, you have the conversation for people that can live that way.
Well, I mean, not just...
But it's just fun.
It's not... it's not impossible to achieve. We're not talking about buying a fucking Lamborghini.
Yeah, but I'm not saying that there's something wrong with talking about that stuff because other people can't afford it. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's actually part of why people are miserable is because they're actually... It's a ridiculous conversation. It's not like the way the earth and the experience of like competing for food and oxygen and living on Earth, and living in society and just being a person. We've got to some altitude here where we're having some stupid conversations that are just, should I do a cold plunge or a sauna? Like, what the is that? It's not that you should be ashamed because people can't afford it. I feel sorry for the guy in that conversation. It's like it's a ridiculous trying to find just the right balance because there's nothing really challenging you because you don't have any real problems and you're not on the earth. You're not standing on the earth anymore. You're in a bubble where you sort of like, maybe I'll try this and maybe I'll just do protein now and I'll do, you know what I mean?
Even though his day-to-day life is mostly recording conversations and doing stand-up shows. And then there's the supplement side of things, which takes it even further. One of the biggest ones he's pushed for years is Alpha Brain, which he talks about like it's some real-life limitless pill. On a recent episode with Bobby Lee, he even said he takes 4 capsules a day and sometimes bumps it up to 6 when he wants to feel extra focused during more serious conversations, which just sounds excessive.
So that's one of the keys.
Could I have one?
Yeah, take 4 of those.
Okay.
That's Alpha Brain Black Label. That stuff is the
I've always, whenever I see a show on your online, I always want to try your little things. I
Well,
don't care
that's a
what it
good
is.
one to try. And this is, I'm affiliated with this company, obviously, but it enhances your memory. It enhances your brain's ability to form sentences. And
Whoa.
yeah, well, with Alpha Brain, we did 2 double-blind, placebo-controlled studies at the Boston Center for Memory, and it showed increase in alpha flow state. It showed increase in verbal memory, increase in, I think it was reaction time, but it does something. And we did it at a dose that's half of what I take. I
Whoa.
take 4. Sometimes I take 6 if I'm feeling frisky. Like if I'm talking to a
Does
scientist.
it hit right away or no?
No.
Okay.
No, it'll take
Okay.
a while. If I'm talking to a scientist, I'll take a shitload of them. I'll take 6.
Well, like Lex. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that guy.
He's awesome.
He's awesome.
But I mean, any scientist, like any time I'm talking to someone who's like explaining to me some very complicated things about the universe,
Yeah.
like I don't want any fogginess. I want to be like locked in.
What makes this even crazier is that Alpha Brain actually ended up in a lawsuit with claims that it's basically no different from a placebo, which says a lot when you look at how heavily it's been promoted. Like you just heard, Joe says he'll take up to 6 capsules just to sit down and talk to people like Lex Fridman or Graham Hancock, which sounds intense for something that's supposed to just help you focus. But whether it actually works or not is still a huge question mark. A number of neurologists have stepped in and said these kinds of supplements don't really do much beyond placebo-level effects, and that's exactly why Onnit, the company Joe is tied to, got dragged into court in the first place. The lawsuit basically argued that there was no meaningful difference between Alpha Brain and a sugar pill, which is a serious claim. Now, here's where it gets a little strange. The person who filed the lawsuit suddenly backed off and dropped the case, which led a lot of people to assume there may have been some kind of behind-the-scenes settlement, even if nothing was officially confirmed. That alone kept the doubts alive. Now, there's still a real chance that Alpha Brain is just an overhyped capsule that doesn't live up to the bold claims, and it doesn't help that, by Joe's own admission, the testing behind it sounded pretty thin, like mentioning only a very small study, which is nowhere near enough to prove something like this actually works. On top of that, an actual neurologist looked into broader research on it and found that while there might be tiny improvements in certain areas, the overall effect is still very limited. Some ingredients may have mild cognitive benefits, but the results mostly lean toward it not being all that effective. When you really break it down, it starts to look like basic habits. Like getting solid sleep and maybe having some coffee could do just as much, if not more, without needing to rely on expensive supplements like this at all. Sure, there might be tiny improvements here and there, but it's nowhere near as powerful as Joe makes it sound on his show. The way he talks about it, you'd think it's some game-changing boost, when in reality, it barely moves the needle. And to be fair, this doesn't even come off as him trying to trick people. It feels more like he genuinely convinces himself that this stuff is way stronger than it actually is. Like believing a few capsules are somehow going to make him sharper or funnier on stage when there are clearly other ways he could improve that he just doesn't seem focused on.
I wish I was gay. It looks way easier. You're hanging out with only guys, no one can get pregnant, no more lies! I wish! And if I was gay, I get to use that F word again. Oh, how I miss it so. Oh, how I miss it so!
What really makes this whole thing even more bizarre is that while he's experimenting with all these random treatments and mystery compounds, he's still openly skeptical of vaccines to this day. That contrast is hard to ignore. You'd think someone who's constantly trying out different health interventions would be more open to widely tested and clinically approved options, but instead he leans heavily into that do-your-own research mindset and questions anything tied to big pharmaceutical companies, which puts him at odds with a lot of mainstream medical consensus. And because of that mindset, it often feels like he only really trusts voices that already align with his views. If someone isn't part of that circle or doesn't fit that lane, there's a good chance he brushes them off entirely. There have even been moments where established experts have been dismissed or talked over. One example people point to is archaeologist Flint Dibble, who has years of real field experience and ended up getting heavily challenged on the show during a debate involving Graham Hancock's theories, which many critics have labeled as fringe or unsupported. That whole episode was honestly painful to watch, but credit to Flint for staying calm and holding it together during that debate, because things could have gone completely off the rails. Still, as wild as that moment was, it's not even the worst example. The most over-the-top moment has to be when Joe told an actual primatologist to Google primates after she explained that the ape species he was talking about doesn't even exist.
At the bottom line, we're really just a complicated form of bacteria.
All right, hold on.
No different than any other animal.
Allison from Florida is going to challenge you. Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a primatologist. There's no such thing as a bondo ape.
You're a fucking idiot. Go online and look it up.
You're a what? What do you do?
It's a new discovery. You're a primatologist? Well, look it up. You're not current. Pay attention. Go online and look it up.
That situation spiraled fast, and it showed just how far he's willing to go instead of just admitting he might be wrong. And yeah, parts of that clip have been shown before, but the full version is on another level. As the conversation goes on, Joe completely loses his cool and just goes off in a way that's hard to ignore. It's not just awkward, it's straight up shocking to see someone react like that toward an expert in their own field. What's even crazier is that this wasn't recent. That moment happened nearly 20 years ago, and yet the same patterns still show up today, which says a lot. That same dismissive attitude toward professionals and experts hasn't really changed, and it keeps popping up in different ways. And that's exactly why moments like these deserve more attention, because they highlight a bigger pattern that people shouldn't just brush off. If you made it this far, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think about all of this.